So Silksong has been released since 3 days ago of writing this video. Of course, when a game does really well, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be mad. If a video game does really badly, there's going to be people laughing about it and mad as well. In this day and age, you can't make anyone happy, obviously. But there's just something about this sort of discussion on Twitter that really made no sense whatsoever. Since the release of Silksong, a group of people have seen it as a huge problem. Hollow Knight Silksong is a big problem for indie games and developers, according to journalists, and some people there really need to be put in a mental institution. Now, for a bit of context on what's really special about Silksong is how it was announced. So about 2 to 3 weeks ago, Gamescom 2025 was airing. Gamescom is one of the largest gaming events that attracts hundreds and hundreds of people, from gamers, developers, publishers, grandmas, grandpas, and every position you can think of in the gaming industry. Gamescom usually has publishers and developers announcing their next releases, so it's a big event that a lot of people have their eyes on. So in Gamescom 2025, they announced Silksong 8 years after the release of Hollow Knight. The thing is, I think there was a little bit of teasing that the developers Team Cherry did, and they will be releasing Silksong sometime after Hollow Knight, not after 8 years. When it took too long and Team Cherry was basically silent for years about Silksong, sports fans basically gave up waiting for an actual game to be released. It took until Gamescom 2025 when it was announced that a bunch of Hollow Knight enjoyers would be rising from their seats and screaming as they finally got an announcement for Silksong, and the release date was basically 2 weeks away after Gamescom. That was a really big announcement, and it sent a lot of people into a frenzy. Of course, the game that they've been waiting for years and also at a certain point given up on suddenly came back out of nowhere with no marketing, no teasers, no nothing. It was a surreal announcement. Not only that, journalists and reviewers didn't get a review copy so that they can't get early access to the game, and the game was set to release with a $20 price tag. Thank the Lord heavens above, a game priced at $20 is actually a miracle in this day and age where most publishers would want as much clams as possible from you, pricing shit stains in the $70, $80, $90 price tag. This is a godsend from Team Cherry. So this game that had little to no marketing for years came into one of the biggest gaming events and just drops a release date away in 2 weeks and a $20 price tag. Isn't that the most powerful move in gaming? Remember last time when the Oblivion remake was basically shadow dropped during its reveal? This is nearly the same as Silksong, except that the game released in 2 weeks away from Gamescom and it had no sort of very popular and apparent leaks whatsoever. Did they have leaks for Silksong? I don't know. No one really expected Silksong to be released this year, and Team Cherry did a great job in basically surprising everyone. Of course, the game is doing really well. A lot of people love Silksong, and it's around 400,000 concurrent players right now and has an all-time peak of nearly 600,000 players. That's basically a really successful release for a single player game, let alone an indie game. Keep in mind that Hollow Knight and this game was developed by 4 people, or was it 3 people? I forgot. I can't count the whole of Team Cherry with one hand. That's how small their studio is. Of course, being one of the biggest game releases of this year, it's not a successful release without some sort of controversy or stupid things going on. So, apparently there were some people on Twitter, as always, that have stupid things to say about a game. Not only on Twitter, there are some people over at Blue Sky saying some dumb shit about the game. One of the biggest reasons why these people have a problem with Silksong was because of the Team Cherry's sudden announcement of a release date that wasn't too far from Gamescom. As per Banmin's courtesy, hopefully he will give us enough ban milk, here are a series of tweets and a Blue Sky post about the whole situation. The first tweet we're going to look at is this: I think Silksong's 2-week PR push has done some damage to other indie studios. I don't think Team Cherry thought about the impact this game would have on other indies and their marketing. I think that's a bummer that I hope isn't replicated, TBH. That was a quote retweet for a tweet that basically said many indie developers were delaying their games to get out of Silksong's way. They had marketing plans which now have to be changed over something they couldn't anticipate. What this tweet by Joseph Moran plan meant is that Team Cherry should have given other indie studios a couple of weeks notice before they're going to announce Silksong's release date. Of course, this is what gaming studios are supposed to be, guys. They should be telling each other about the games they're working on. They should be working together on planning their release dates around each other. We should foster this lovely and cooperative community of indie developers so we can benefit from each other. Hey, you stroke my cock and I'll stroke yours. How about that? Together we will come together and create this beautiful harmony with each other. You know how stupid that sounds? That Team Cherry should be planning the announcement of the release date of Silksong based on other indie studios and developers. Do you know how stupid that actually sounds? What an indie developer or studio plan to do shouldn't be of concern with other indie studios and developers. What Silksong does is not doing damage to other indie studios. That's just ridiculous. I've never heard this kind of complaint from anyone about a game release until now. Yeah, Silksong's release date was announced 2 weeks in advance. Who the hell cares? Why should the devs plan the announcement of the release date way longer before its actual release? That doesn't make any sense. The devs should only be caring about whether they can finish the game on time and whether the game will be good. It's literally up to their own decision in this matter, and no one outside should really have a say in it. It doesn't matter if they decided to shadow drop during Gamescom or to release the game years into the future. That doesn't matter at all. The announcement also shouldn't be in consideration with other indie studios. They're not like actively working in a partnership with other indie studios, so why should they care about doing quote-unquote damage to other indie studios? It's an industry, a gaming industry at that. Just like a lot of industry, the gaming industry is pretty cutthroat. If your game doesn't do well, don't expect other studios or publishers to save your asses. You already saw how many studios were shut down, massive layoffs happening in big studios. This is a pretty cutthroat industry. You don't get a free pass of privilege just because you're an indie studio. That's not how it works. Moving on to the next tweet, it's basically the same. I can't be the only person who thinks it's kind of fucked up for Silksong to reveal its release date so late. Like, man, you're indie developers, you should understand the struggle that studios go through. It's the same. Basically, Team Cherry should be more considerate of other indie studios because they're also struggling and they need to be spoon-fed to success because they struggle. Yeah, indie studios struggle a lot, but it doesn't mean Team Cherry still should just change their release date or announce the release date way before its actual release. I don't get these people blaming Team Cherry for other indie studios pushing their game's release date further back because of Silksong's release. In fact, I really don't understand why some of the indie studios push back their game's release date in the first place. I'm sure that they probably think that being released at the same time as Silksong or close to Silksong's release, their game's discoverability and attention would be non-existent because Silksong would still be the hot topic of the month. That certainly can happen, but it's the gaming industry. I think every other month there's going to be a popular release that'll overshadow games, right? That's not really a thing that's only exclusive to indie games and Silksong alone. Not even just game releases, game teasers can overshadow games as well, like what happened with Battlefield 6 and Black Ops 7. When the BF6 open beta was released, everyone had a good time. The Black Ops 7 trailer had a massive dislike bomb because of everyone having a good time with BF6 open beta. Just look at the comments on the Black Ops 7 gameplay trailer. Everyone was commenting on how they'll pick BF6 over Black Ops 7. Next, we move on to the post from Blue Sky. Dear God. BTW, Team Cherry absolutely had the responsibility of giving a heads up about the release of Silksong and accommodating other indie devs in regards to it. Art isn't made in a vacuum, and as indie devs, they absolutely know how hard it is for other indie devs to be visible. This is another dog shit take and mentality. I mean, it's synonymous with Blue Sky, so it made sense why there was this kind of notion going on in the first place there. This whole thing of having to accommodate and giving heads up before it's released for their games towards other devs and studios is just a stupid concept. These devs and studios are not in some sort of secret clique with each other that they need to support one another by giving each other some sort of heads up for their releases. It's not real, and it shouldn't be an industry standard. It shouldn't be an industry standard because there will be no competition at all. The gaming industry is a breeding ground for competition. Competition is a beneficial thing for basically all gaming studios, indie or not. If there isn't any competition, there will be no innovation whatsoever. Look at sports games. Look at FIFA or EAFC now that they call it. That game has no competition at all, and it's been the single most piece of shit ever existed. The last good FIFA was FIFA 17, and that was 9 years ago. No competition? What about PES? PES is absolute dog water now. Ever since they turned into eFootball 4 years ago, the franchise was in the mud. And because of Konami eventually already dragging its franchise through the mud, EA finally has a monopoly on football games. There is no more competition for EA. They completely dominated the space. So if Team Cherry started doing what that blue sky poster said, there's a chance that the indie space would be losing its competition. They're all going to be in on some sort of secret, planning out release dates according to each other, which is not a good thing. Art isn't made in a vacuum, yeah, but art isn't made with the thought of having to accommodate with other artists. If you do art, then you do art. You create it, you have your own interpretation in mind, you release it. You don't need to accommodate other artists for your own art that you created. That is so stupid and unnecessary. Team Cherry isn't horrible or inconsiderate for what they did. In fact, they should be celebrated more because they actually managed to release a game right on the release date without any sort of delay. Well, given that it took them 8 years of silence before it, but still. Silksong is a massive success and it should be praised and celebrated, not finding these stupid petty problems. Now we move on to the next problem that these people have said. Problem is that Silksong was priced at $20. Here's a unique headline. Is Hollow Knight Silksong's cheap price a problem for other indie games? Devs and publishers weigh up its impact. Wow. What a headline, huh? Thanks a lot for that, Eurogamer. It's actually insane that people are complaining about the $20 price tag on Silksong. It's not even customers that are complaining, it's obviously developers that are complaining about Silksong's price tag. It's such a wake-up call to these greedy-ass developers and publishers that a game this big and successful is just $20. It actually pissed them off that now people are preferring to spend less money on Silksong rather than a game with bloated and inflated prices that aren't even worth half of it. What's even funnier is that a lot of indie developers are the ones that are complaining about the price of Silksong here in a Games Radar article. As a dev making a smaller Metroidvania than Silksong, which I originally thought would be fairly priced at $20, what should I price it now? A developer from Busty Art Games said this quote on Twitter. I mean, if you think your indie game should be priced at $20, then just price it at $20. I think the pricing on Silksong won't have any effect on your indie game. As long as your indie game is good and fun, I think $20 is perfectly fine as it is. If you want to go higher than $20, then go for it as well. Though I would argue that indie games cannot go over $30 to $40. It's just not really worth the price tag unless the indie game is at a level with AAA games, then it obviously can go above that, right? But I don't think any indie developers are going to make a game at AAA quality because they just don't have the budget and manpower to do it. Silksong is basically underpriced, we all know that, but that doesn't mean it's like undermining its worth. Team Cherry are the ones who set that price themselves. If they think Silksong is worth $20, then maybe it is worth that price and we should celebrate that it's priced that much. In a world where games are now going to exceed the $90 mark, a game with Silksong's quality and priced at $20 clams is actually such a godsend in this world. We still have developers that really respect gamers and want gamers to actually play their games. I do think that placing Silksong at a $20 price tag is such a good move because it's setting a standard in the gaming industry that developers and publishers should really take a step back and reevaluate their pricing strategy. Look, I'm sure that if the game is really good, people would spend their money on whatever the price tag is. But at a certain point, that kind of notion wouldn't last that long. It wouldn't last long because other developers who made crappy games would have them priced higher than its actual worth and people are going to see through it. It wouldn't be good for the industry if everything becomes more expensive, right? You wouldn't want that. So we should really thank Team Cherry for pricing the game at $20 and having it released on the Xbox Game Pass on day one release because it's doing good for the industry. It's doing good for the world. We don't need more games like Avowed being priced at $70. We need more good quality AAA games that are priced around $50 to $60 again. Also, it's making sure that indie developers don't have their heads so far up in their asses that they think their indie games should be worth $50. I understand the concerns. I get where they're coming from, but it's just not going to happen. Setting a high quality game like Silksong priced at $20 won't hurt the indie gaming scene. It won't. I think Silksong is an exception to this because of how popular and successful Hollow Knight was. But then again, it's a good move because now we can see that we don't have to break the bank to play games. It's good for consumers, and as a gamer that have little to zero knowledge about developing a game, we want things to benefit us gamers more. So yeah, Silksong isn't some big problem for indie games. It's the exact opposite. It shows that a small team with almost no marketing, no bloated budget, and a fair price tag can still completely shake the industry. That should be motivating, not depressing. If other indie devs see Silksong as a threat instead of proof that you don't need to nickel and dime players to succeed, that's on them. At the end of the day, good games rise to the top, and Silksong is just that good. Team Cherry didn't ruin the indie scene, they reminded everyone why people love it in the first place. That is all. I'll see ya.